Our next guest is called the Biden administration's immigration plan, Recruit and Release. Joining us now, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, welcome back.
Good to be on with you, Chris.
You just watched my interview with Secretary Mayorkas. Your reaction, sir?
Chris, it's rich that Secretary Mayorkas won't let press travel with him to the border, but he will come on your Sunday morning show and peddle the same kind of nonsense that has created the Biden border crisis in the first place. I mean, he's basically saying that the United States will not secure our border, and that is a big welcome sign to migrants from across the world.
So you say that you have three simple solutions. What are they?
Yeah, Chris, the Biden administration keeps saying that Trump somehow dismantled the immigration system. That's false. It was the Biden administration that dismantled three highly effective policies. First, the public health exclusionary order. They lifted that order as it relates to minors. Well, guess what we have now at the border? Lots more minors. That's not a surprise. Second, the Remain in Mexico policy. The Trump administration worked with the government of Mexico to allow migrants who showed up on our border to make an asylum claim, but remain in Mexico while we adjudicated that, rather than just releasing them into the country. And third, the so-called Safe Third Country Agreement with countries like Guatemala that says if you pass through a country that's not your own seeking asylum, you have to make that asylum claim in the first country you pass through. That's the international norm. That's what we should do. Joe Biden could reimpose all three of those things this week if he wanted to.
One of the things I was struck by at the end of the interview, Secretary Mayorkas said, quote, "The border is secure, the border is closed." Is it?
No, Chris, of course not. The border is wide open. There are reports now that Customs and Border Patrol may be directed to simply start processing people in the country without even giving them a notice to appear in court. And of course, all of these bogus asylum claims are taking up so much manpower and resources at the border. That means that we also have other threats like increases in fentanyl and other kinds of drug trafficking, or persons on the terrorist watch list crossing into our border. The border right now is wide open because the Biden administration dismantled the very effective policies of the Trump administration and the agreements we had with Mexico and other Latin American countries.
I want to turn to another subject. Senator, you voted against the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, and I want to put up some of the things that it would do for Arkansas. It would provide stimulus payments of up to $1,400 to 93% of adults in your state and 94% of children in your state. It would also provide $1.2 billion for schools in Arkansas, grades K through 12. Senator, are you saying that the people of your state don't need that money?
Well, Chris, that bill would do a lot of other things as well. You know, we've been talking about what caused this border crisis. Look at a couple other provisions in that bill. For instance, they're going to have stimulus checks to illegal aliens as well, or money to sanctuary cities. Those are the kinds of incentives that help migrants come to our border. More broadly, though, Chris, we worked together last year with the Democrats and the Trump administration to pass multiple bills to help the American people get through this pandemic. Many of those bills passed unanimously. We did one in December as well. The conditions, of course, have changed now. Vaccines are spreading across the country. Case rates are declining rapidly. Republicans had no problem providing more money for vaccine distribution, for instance, or to help people who have lost income. But we shouldn't be spending $2 trillion on a lot of unrelated Democratic priorities or sending out money to families that haven't lost any income. That's what this bill did.
Here is one of your other complaints about the COVID relief bill. Take a look, sir.
Look how crazy some of the Democratic ideas are. I mean, they had a chance on Saturday morning to stop checks from going to prisoners, from going to the Boston bomber, for instance. And on that vote, they declined. Every single Democrat wanted to continue the practice of sending checks to prisoners.
But, Senator, under two previous COVID relief bills that you supported and voted for and that President Trump signed, prisoners also got checks in those bills.
Well, Chris, that was obviously never Congress's intent. The Trump administration, IRS, and Treasury Department did not send checks to prisoners. Liberal advocacy groups sued to try to force that. A liberal judge said they had to. this month was the first time we ever had a simple up or down vote on whether those checks should go to prisoners. And the simple fact is that every Democrat voted to keep sending checks to prisoners. I don't think that's a smart idea. I suspect most Americans don't either.
One of the next big pieces of legislation that President Biden is working on is going to be an even bigger $2 trillion, $3 trillion, $4 trillion infrastructure plan. And I want to look at some of the infrastructure needs that Arkansas has. 4.9% of the bridges in Arkansas are structurally deficient. 193 dams have high hazard potential. Drinking water needs in your state, $7.4 billion. President Biden wants to pay for this plan, at least in part by raising taxes on people making more than $400,000 a year, and to raise the corporate tax rate from 21% up to 28%. Would you support? I mean, aren't the needs in Arkansas sufficiently urgent that you could support taxing people making more than $400,000 and raising the tax rate on corporations, which is still lower than which would still be lower than when President Trump came into office, to pay for that?
Chris, we have infrastructure needs in Arkansas like every state does, but I suspect, based on what I've heard from my Democratic friends in the Senate, that this bill is not going to be geared towards those needs. It's going to be geared towards big tax increases and implementing something like the Green New Deal. Now, if you think your gas bills have gone up a lot recently, wait till you see what you pay at the pump after the Democrats do that. We can do this kind of bill, though, Chris, without big tax hikes. The reason we're talking about an infrastructure bill right now is that the last bill we passed is about to expire at the end of this year, and we passed that bill in 2015 with more than 80 votes in the United States Senate without tax increases, because we focused on a lot of the problems we have with infrastructure in this country, like excessively burdensome and lengthy and cumbersome permitting and regulatory and environmental approval processes. Chris, you probably know that the Pentagon was built in 16 months in the 1940s. It took the government years to repair a bridge in front of the Pentagon that just runs a couple hundred feet. The problems that we have in this country is not that we don't have enough money for infrastructure, that it costs too much and we spend too much on things that are not roads and bridges and broadband access.
Right. Finally, I've got about a minute left here, sir. President Biden talked this week about trying to reform, not end, but to reform the filibuster so that senators have to keep talking around the clock in order to continue the filibuster and to stop the legislation. Take a look at President Biden.
I don't think you have to eliminate the filibuster. You have to do it what it used to be when I first got to the Senate. You had to stand up and command the floor. Once you stopped talking, you lost that, and someone could move in and say, I moved the question of.
There has been an explosion in filibusters. 357 cloture motions to end debate, many of them not successful, but 357 between 1975 and 1992. Since 1993, 1,803 cloture motions, and as I say, many of them didn't end the filibuster. They were just attempts to. Senator, you know, at some point, maybe as soon as 2 years from now, you Republicans are going to be back in the majority. Isn't there something to be said for more legislating and less gridlock?
No, Chris, there's something to be said for compromise and bipartisanship and respect for the rights of the minority in the Senate. These rules have been in place since the beginning of our republic. And the Democrats are engaged in pretty highly situational ethics. You know, just 4 years ago, 27 Democrats still in the Senate wrote a letter urging Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer to maintain these rules. Now, most of those senators have flip-flopped simply because they have the barest of majorities. Republicans refused to change those rules 4 years ago because we respect these traditions in the Senate, and we know that they've helped forge durable, bipartisan consensus legislation.
Senator Cotton, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. Always good to talk with you.
Thank you, Chris.